Good morning, everyone. Well, actually, where I am, it is actually noon. And StreamYard just told me that I had put this on the schedule for tomorrow instead of today, which is the story of my life. But I did mean to put it for today. So hopefully some of you got the notification and will be coming on live. If not, I'm super sorry about that. I know most of you will be coming via replay, and I get that and I honor that. If you would just put hashtag replay and put your name and where you're tuning in from, because that will help me to know that you were here so that I can acknowledge that. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening, because it's just my goal to share with you and teach you. So my name is Christy Varner, for those of you that I haven't met, and I am streaming live today on my Facebook group, Small Business Finance Simplified. It's a Facebook group that I started just this past fall for entrepreneurs and small business owners to help you gain confidence in your ability to understand your numbers, because I am just passionate that those numbers are actually the insight you need to run your business better. And that's what I do for my business, is I consult in that way. And so this is just a way for me to give back to all of you and to create a community for you. So, hey, hi from New York. Hey, you guys, if you haven't said, hey, Janelle, if you haven't said yes to StreamYard up above, I would love for you to do that, because then I can see your face. So see, you'll see like there. See, I just got Janelle says, hello, Christy. So otherwise, then I just see this, which I'm still so super happy that you guys are here. So don't get me wrong, even if you don't tell StreamYard yes, but that's just how I broadcast. And I am today in my group, Small Business Finance Simplified, as well as on my YouTube channel, Christy Varner, and on my personal profile, I think, or my business page. Can't remember which. But anyway, so I want to talk to you guys today about the PPP that just got released, because this matters. And I am cheering you guys on and so excited that we have this ahead of us again. A lot of it's the same and some of it is different. So let me tell you about that. This will be really helpful if you have questions and ask questions. This is a moment for you to answer the questions. I will say that if you can see my couch, I'm covered with paperwork. I've read so much to try to be up to speed and to be helpful. I may or may not know the answer immediately, but I have read all the documents that the government has given us, and I will try to help you. So there you have it. And so let me tell you, so the PPP became law like 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago. And then from there, the Treasury and SBA had to release guidance, because basically what happens is Congress passes their big law. It was over 5,000 pages and included this PPP portion. And then the Treasury and SBA had to sort of boil it down to like, this is how it's actually going to work, the nuts and bolts of it. And they did that last week. And then there've been lots of changes through things. But let me back up a little bit and just tell you that you'll hear the PPP also referred to as the Economic Aid Act. So if you hear those words, that's the same thing. So, oh, how do we do it? Are you asking about StreamYard? It should be up above, like in the thing where I just started it, right above, it should have a link that you can click on for StreamYard. You guys, does it? If it doesn't, then I'm super sorry, because I may have messed that up, since apparently I scheduled this for tomorrow instead of today. So I may be confusing StreamYard. But if you just click on that, then it should work. Sorry, I'm watching these. This is what I love about StreamYard, is it shows me the messages. The reason I do it here is it allows me to go in more places and shows me the messages from YouTube and Facebook group all at the same time. So it just is a way for me. I love to teach and share anything that I know. So this is just a way to be efficient. Okay, so the PPP opens this week. In fact, opens today for first draw loans, and we're going to talk all about that. So don't worry. It's very similar to the first PPP in many ways. There are a few changes that I'm going to talk about, and I think most of these changes are actually better for you as small business owners. And so I think you're going to be pleased with that. So let me just talk about the differences first. And then I'm going to talk about where, when, who, all that stuff. Okay. So some of you didn't apply the first time, and I will address that because you now have the opportunity to apply. Some of you did apply and want to take your second draw. So for those of you that did apply, let me explain to you some of the differences that you're going to see come through for the second draw. So the first draw, the maximum loan amount was 10 million. It's 2 million this time, from 10 to 2 million. The maximum amount of employees you could have had the first time was 500 employees. Now that is 300 employees. A lot of this doesn't apply to those of you in my group because we're truly the small businesses. And I love that this is aimed at us. You can see when it's down to the 2 million, that's going to knock out a lot of people. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. The first time, if you'll remember, you had a covered period to use your PPP loan proceeds to apply for forgiveness of either 8 weeks or 24 weeks. You could opt 8 or 24. This time you can choose your covered period between 8 and 24 weeks, whatever works for you. And that is a huge advantage, you guys. I'm really excited about that because it's just going to allow you to use it in the way that best runs your business. And that makes sense, right? So I love that. The last couple things I want to talk about are the EIDL. A lot of you took the EIDL Advance. That is now, we talked about that even last week when I did my update last week. And so if you didn't see that, then go back and watch that because that was about forgiveness on the first loan. But so that Advance now can count in your deductibility. And there's not a new Advance yet, but the EIDL loan, if you took the loan by April 3rd, you can refinance it if you want and count that into your loan amount. So I know most people did not get an EIDL loan before April 3rd. Most of you got it after, if you did. So it's not applicable to a lot of people, but it is applicable to some of you. And so I want you to know that. So that's a big thing. So where can you get your PPP loan? The same as before, it's got to be an SBA approved lender. It's the whole thing of, the FDIC, credit unions, community banks, national banks, like tons of different SBA lenders. And you want to check with the different lenders to find out who's going to cover it. You may have had a bad experience the first time, or you may have had a great experience. And I would love to know. So if you will post below in the comments, the bank that you dealt with and whether or not it was a good experience or not for the application as well as the forgiveness, that will be really helpful for me in making recommendations going forward, but also really helpful to you guys, right? So if you'll post now who you dealt with, that would be great. And if you're on replay, put it because, like I said, we'll be going back through and I may do a separate post on that so that people can just, a separate post later so people can see that so they can get ideas. Because I know some of the banks knocked it out of the park and some banks really just fell flat. But let me tell you an interesting thing. The SBA in a press release on Friday said that the portals are opening. The portal is opening today for first draw loans. So those of you that did not get the PPP the first time through, you have an opportunity. And we'll talk about that in a minute. For those of you who would be taking a second draw, Cabbage, heard great things about Cabbage. I would love to hear how your experience was if you have applied for forgiveness yet also. Would love to know that. Thank you for posting that. But oh my goodness, you guys, I lose my train of thought. See, I'm such the real person. Oh, okay, sorry. So second draw people, you can start applying on Wednesday. But is this so interesting? The first banks that get to go are the community banks. So they are knocking out anyone that's not considered a community regional bank. So for a lot of you that I know I'm in the Dallas area, I have a friend who went with First Frisco Bank and had a great experience with them. That would be a community bank. So it doesn't mean that the national banks are not going to get it or the bigger banks. I know PayPal and Bluevine. I know a lot of those did it. They're probably, my guess is they're not going to be in this Monday and Wednesday, but the words from SBA were, and the Treasury were, that the other banks will follow shortly thereafter. So there you go. There's government speak for, we're not telling you exactly the day, but shortly thereafter. So that's the scoop on when does it start. So it starts today for first draw, January 11th, 2021, Monday. And depending on what day you're watching this, Wednesday, that's why I'm telling you the dates, Wednesday, January 13th for second draw. And starts with community banks, but everybody else will follow shortly thereafter. So does this mean that we should be in a panic to hurry up and get in our loans? Because we remember that it was crazy town the first time. Remember how crazy it was? Like everything shut down. The banks were unorganized. It was a horrible mess. Ran out of money. Okay, but let's remember how it ended. Okay, when it closed down in August, it actually ended with money still there and with the banks finally getting it together, right? So I know some of the banks still didn't do a great job, but a lot of them finally got it together. So, I mean, it's hard to say, and I obviously cannot predict, but what I will say, the things that make me tell you that I'm not in a 100% panic about the timing for you. Now, I'm not telling you to delay, but I don't think like you need to like wreck your car and pull over to do this at this, very second. Are number one, the banks know what they're doing this time, right? We've been there, done that. The second time around is always a lot easier. Also, they're kind of rolling it out smaller. Like the community banks are going to go first, so it's not every single person hitting the portal all at once, right? It's just some, and then they'll add in the rest. And then the other thing is you guys, they severely changed who can get this second draw, right? Because it went from people who were eligible to get up to 10 million down to only getting 2 million. So it will have knocked a lot of people out. It knocked out people with more than 300 employees. So that's a huge thing. The second draw loan, the big thing that you really need to know is not only do you have to have less than 300 employees, 300 employees or less, and the max is 2 million. You have to demonstrate economic hardship. So this is the biggest criteria that's going to be a change for you. So you demonstrate economic hardship and a need by showing that you had a 25% decline in your revenue from 2020 to 2019. Now that can be demonstrated overall, so for all of 2020 versus all of 2019, or by just any one quarter in 2020 relative to the same quarter in 2019. So for instance, a lot of you probably had a huge decline in the second quarter of 2020 because that's when the pandemic really hit and things were closed. So say that you took your 2020 revenue number and you compare it to the same revenue number for 2019, there has to be a 25% or more decline. Okay, so tell me if you have questions, if that doesn't make sense, but you have to be able to demonstrate that decline. So that also is going to knock out a lot of people. I can't believe I didn't say that in the very beginning when I talked about the changes. I wrote down changes to tell you and then just skipped right over that. So sorry about that, but I'm sure a lot of you have heard that already. So that's a huge thing that you have to demonstrate a 25% decline. So we've talked about where you're going to get your loans. We've talked a little bit about the changes. Let me talk about when you can get these loans. So when you can get these loans, starting this week, first draw today, Monday, January 11th, 2021, second draw starting Wednesday, January 13th, 2021, you can apply through the end of March. So through 3/31 or until the funds run out. So am I telling you to wait until 3/29? Absolutely not. I would definitely, if you know that you've had economic hardship and these funds are going to help you, I encourage you to go ahead and do your application. I talked about, will it get used up quickly? So very similar to the first time around about who can apply for these. Very similar. You have to show that you are a qualified entity. So that would be you can be an LLC, you can be an S corp, you can be a partnership, you can be a sole proprietor, self-employed, independent contractor, but you do have to demonstrate that, and you must have been in business by February 15th, 2020. So if you didn't go into business until March, then unfortunately you don't qualify for this. February 15th, 2020. You also, I told you for first draw loans, you have to have 500 or less employees. For second draw, it's 300 or less. Who you have to have shown that 25% decrease if you are taking a second draw loan. Let me just tell you that when we talk about the paperwork that's required to show that, if you're requesting less than $150,000, it looks like you are not going to have to prove the 25% decline, but please don't apply if you don't have it, because you will have to prove it for forgiveness. And obviously, like you have to have it. It's just a way to kind of speed up the paperwork. So it should be fairly easy for you to calculate that anyway, because you will have already filed your 2019 taxes, and hopefully you have your paperwork in order. I'm guessing for most of you, it's going to be second or third quarter that you would be able to use for sure, because it's any one quarter. It doesn't have to be all the quarters. It's any one quarter in 2020 that's less than it was in 2019. That's all that it takes to qualify for this proof of economic hardship. So I would just encourage you, don't apply if you didn't actually have a decline. But probably a lot of you sadly had the decline, and I'm thankful that this is going to come and help you. Obviously, should be the faster you apply, the faster you get the money. So we saw the stimulus checks to people rolled out pretty immediately. So my hope is that this money will get released pretty immediately too, because they know that you need that. So just to say that. Hey, I just realized I never even introduced myself. This is so the story of my life. I get so excited about this. So let me just tell you, my name is Christy Varner, and I am here in the Dallas area. I actually live in Plano, right outside of Dallas. And I've been a CPA for more than 25 years, worked with companies of various sizes, all word of mouth for the last 20 years. And just this last year, felt it on my heart to really, really reach out to entrepreneurs and small business owners to help you, because my heart just knows that you need and deserve financial expertise too. So this is just my way of giving back, and my hope is to create a community with you where I can give to you from what I know, and maybe you will also feel free to give to other people from what you know. So that's just who I am and what I'm doing here. So I love this question. I don't know who this is, but what if your business was started in January 2020? Well, you are in luck. So if your business started by January of 2020, you still are able to qualify. So that's good news. But you're like, yeah, but I don't have a quarter to compare to. So you compare to your first quarter of 2020. So you can take your second, third, or fourth quarter of 2020 and compare to your first quarter of 2020. And I will link, after we finish, I will link into the comments the rules so that you can see that. I think that's on pages 20 to 22 of the rules. But anyway, so that's good news for you. So hopefully you will be able to prove that. So, okay, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. You guys, I have so many notes, but I took, I always use my iPad all the time. So these are my iPad notes, and like I said, have so many more. So let me talk a little bit to you about those of you who are sole proprietors, or if you're an LLC who's single member and you're filing as a sole proprietor. or if you're self-employed or an independent contractor. So the way that you don't have payroll. So the calculation for this, the maximum amount, let me talk about actually the maximum amount of how you calculate, and then I'll talk about the sole proprietors. So the way the loan is calculated, the maximum loan is 2.5 times your average monthly payroll cost for either 2019 or 2020. So for those of, and this is the same for you if you're taking a first draw or a second draw. Okay, so all of you need to hear this part. It's 2.5 times average monthly payroll for either the 12-month period of 2019 or the 12-month period of 2020. Or you can use the 12 months right before you apply for a loan. So for right now, that would be 2020. But like if you applied February 15th, you could use, February of 2020 through January of 2021. But let's just assume everybody's going to do this right now because that's just, simpler. So you could use 2019 or 2020. We're going to multiply that average monthly payroll by 2.5. So let me just say, the obvious thing is you're going to want to take whichever payroll is higher because it will qualify you for the higher payroll amount. And I would think for most of you, that number is going to be from 2019 payroll. Now, for those of you that did a first draw loan back in 2020, sorry, getting all the years confused. Who could forget 2020? Seriously. But for those of you that applied in 2020, this is the same calculation that you already did. So you already have your paperwork. And let me just address really quickly about whether or not you should change banks if you are doing a second draw. The advantage to staying with your same bank is they have that paperwork and you don't have to recertify all of that payroll calculation that you already gave them, right? Because they already have it. So I would encourage you with that. I know some people are panicked because they went with a big bank the first time and it wasn't as smooth a process as they wanted, or you're panicked because, the community banks go first. I think those are all things that you've got to take into consideration. But the one thing that will give the advantage to staying with, the bank you used the first time through is that they do have that paperwork. So you're going to calculate your payroll, your average monthly payroll, by taking your 941s, which is your payroll submissions to the IRS, and you're going to divide that by 12. Okay, and that's your average monthly payroll. So for those of you that are sole proprietors or independent contractors, self-employed, or an LLC that files as a sole proprietor, you are going to take your Schedule C, which is your business part of your tax return, and divide by Schedule C, line 31, which is the net profit. So it doesn't matter how much you actually paid yourself during the year. That's not applicable. It's what your net profit was from that Schedule C, line 31, and divide that by 12. And that, for these purposes, is considered your average monthly payroll. So the question comes up, what if I was negative? Unfortunately, if you have a negative number, if you had a loss, then that does not work for this. So I'm sorry about that. I hate that. And I know for certain purposes, sometimes you end up in a loss for tax purposes, but that's how that works. So I'm sorry about that. But that's how you calculate average monthly payroll. Then the calculation is very similar to the last time. You multiply by 2.5 times. And then this time you can add your EIDL loan that you took before April 3rd, 2020 to that. And if you want to refinance that, you can add that. So for instance, if you had, $120,000 in your payroll for the year and you divide by 12, then you would have $10,000 as your average monthly payroll. I'm just doing easy math here because, come on, I'm doing this in my brain and I know you guys are all wanting to do this the easy way. So if you had $10,000 in average monthly payroll, you'd multiply by 2.5. So your loan so far is $25,000. Then you can add an EIDL loan that you want refinanced that you took by April 3rd. So for a lot of you, that number is going to be 0 because, a lot of people didn't get their EIDL loans by April 3rd. But if you did and you want to refinance it, you can add that in there. So otherwise, if your number was 0, then that would be it. So your maximum loan amount would be $25,000. So if you are in NAICS code 72, which is mostly restaurants, then you can apply for 3.5 times, which is awesome because we all know, man, the restaurant industry has been hit hard. And you'll know your NAICS code is what you put on your tax return. So that's why these codes matter, because this is what they're going to use. So if you qualify under that code, then you could use 3.5 times. But I think for most of you in my group and that I deal with, you're probably not NAICS code 72. But if you are, then that works for you. Okay, so that's the payroll calculation. We talked about who. Now let's talk about, like, okay, so I got my money. Let's just assume that you go through the whole process and you got your money. So now what? So now you can use your money. You can use your money to pay payroll. And I already told you guys, but I just want to remind you that now you do not have to choose 8 weeks or 24 weeks. You can choose any period as your covered period between 8 and 24 weeks. So you can use qualified expenditures, include a whole lot more. So you can use it for payroll, you can use it for rent or mortgage, which was true last time, but this time they're adding in additional operating expenditures, such as some supplies, some software. You need to read the rules and look at it very carefully. These are things that you can use the money for once you get the money. You can use it for property damage that you may have had as a result of vandalism in 2020. I'm so sorry for those of you that went through that. For PPP, PPE, for those of you that have needed that, there are additional supplies that you can use that money for. And you will have to, when you apply for the loan, you will have to certify that you needed the loan, that you have economic uncertainty that requires you to need this loan. So just know that. Obviously, most of you do have that economic uncertainty, but that's one of the certifications that you'll make. Also, that you have the right entity structure, that you're in business by 2/15/20, and that you will use this money to retain workers as well as for those costs that I just talked about. You can't be in bankruptcy. You cannot be permanently closed. And you'll have to certify to that stuff. Now, once you have that money and you're using that money, you are interested now in getting it forgiven. And who wouldn't be interested in being forgiven? I'm so there for you. So good news, forgiveness applies again. And it's going to be very similar rules. You must use at least 60% of the money that you're given for payroll costs. The other 40% you can use for all those other categories that I talked to you about. For a lot of you, you're going to use it for all payroll. And honestly, it's just, even if you would use it for other things, it's just simpler to use it for all payroll, because when you go to apply for forgiveness, it's much easier to just have to show one set of all the documentation, right? So one set of the payroll information rather than pull all the different documents. So for those of you that makes sense for, I would, encourage you, just like we did the first time. I would encourage you to stick with just the payroll. It's just simpler. Okay, wait, let me just ask. I see a question I want to say. You said under 125,000 or 25,000. You know what? I don't understand the question. Will you post more of what that's about? Because I want to answer that question, and honestly, I don't remember saying either one of those. So let me answer the question. If you will, just post a little bit more about that. And then let me see. I see another question. Let me see. I used part of my PPP loan for Amy's DCA course. Was that not an appropriate expense? I would have to look at the rules more carefully, Regina. I'd be surprised that, like, it does say supplies. I have so many pieces of paper on my desk right now. I can't think that that comes out. There was software, there's supplies, but I'm guessing, Regina, that could you not use it all for payroll? I'm hoping you use it all for payroll because literally that's the easiest. I don't know what your entity structure is, but you know, that's usually the easiest. I mean, I'm not saying you couldn't have used it for that, but I would just, you know, you probably also paid yourself. And as long as it's, you know, as long as you have all the pieces there that adds up to the total, you know, because you will have spent for Amy's course, but you all will have also spent on other things too. So I'm guessing that that you would be okay. But oh, I also used it for payroll. You said yes. Okay. Did you use all of it for payroll? Like, could we count all of it for payroll? Because if you, you know, ended up using that entire amount for payroll, plus you also bought Amy's course, for those of you that aren't in DCA and you're like, what is she even talking about? That's Digital Course Academy. And Regina and I were in there together where we were both writing digital courses. So I can't wait to talk to you more about that, Regina. Let me see. You said, yes, it went to payroll, but I also had additional income, so I could afford payroll and her course. Yes. Okay. Well, so if the whole amount could have been used for payroll, then use that all for payroll. And then your additional income you could use for your other for like the DCA or whatever else. So I hope that that made sense, but it's just cleaner if you can make it all, you know, be for, if you can just take that portion. And obviously, like, it's not like they're going to trace like this $1 through. What they're looking for is like, if I received $25,000 in a PPP loan, did I pay out $25,000 in payroll, right? And I mean, obviously you can use other things too. So, oh yay, she said that answers your questions. Okay, that's my goal, you guys. That's the whole reason I'm doing this. And it's crazy because I get a little bit nervous coming on here to talk to you guys because I just want to serve you so well, and I hope that that's my whole goal, is to help make this easier, you guys. I want you to run your businesses, and I want to be helpful to you. Okay, so back to the forgiveness thing. So it's basically that 60-40 split again. The great news is that the paperwork is getting even easier. So it used to be that they had sort of like the 50,000 and under loan amount was the easiest loan application, and then they had the easy, which was for greater than 50,000 under certain circumstances, and then the longer one. This new law says that under 150,000, it's going to be a one-page application for forgiveness. And so I can't wait to see that. It will be amazing when it comes out, but we don't even need to worry about that application yet because it's a long time in coming. We're not anywhere near that. We need to get the loan first. But just so you know, that they are trying to simplify things. And I think that's for everybody. They're trying to simplify things for us as small business owners. Remember, I'm in your same shoes. I'm a small business owner too. So I understand what you're going through. And I'm trying to figure out all those same questions. So the other thing is you can take it as a loan. Okay. So if you find that, you didn't use all your money for, if you couldn't get forgiveness for all of your money, it's a 1% loan for 5 years. You guys, that's amazing, right? There's no other way to raise capital that cheap. So I'm just saying, I am a conservative person. I'm not in favor of debt. But I also am in favor of running your business well. And sometimes it takes debt to grow your business. Okay. So you want to take smart debt on. I'm not opposed to all debt. And I'm a conservative person. Okay. But I'm just telling you, like, we make decisions in business to grow our business, and a 1% loan over 5 years, if there turns out to be a portion that is not forgiven, then it may not be the end of the world. But you can also just return it. If there's a portion that's not forgiven and you're like, I don't want to have the loan, Christy, just return the money and then you don't have the loan. So just know that there are ways around that. Okay, I think I've touched on a lot of the big topics. I'm interested if you have questions I'm going to look and see. I think I tried to answer the questions as I went. I'm going to scroll through, but if you have questions, and ask them. If you are watching this on replay, then post your questions in the group. Small Business Finance Simplified is the Facebook group, and I love helping entrepreneurs and small business owners. Or you can post them here below in the video on YouTube or in the Facebook group, and I will come back and look at those. But that's my goal, is to help answer the questions. I think that I'm glad to see you had success with cabbage. That's great news. Let me look through my notes and see if there's anything else that I'm seeing that I didn't talk to you guys about. We talked about the differences, who you can get the money from, when. Okay, so just for the recap, it opens today for first draw. Oh, I didn't have, do you have the link where we can apply? Yes, well, yes and no. You're going to apply through your banks again. Okay, so it's not going to be directly through the government. You're going to apply through a bank. I'm glad you asked this question. So you don't apply directly through the government, you apply through your bank. And I'm glad I didn't write this down. See what happens when I don't write this down? So when you apply through your bank, and you'll just have to call and find banks that are doing this. They're the SBA lenders. Literally, you can Google that probably. But there's a lot of them. And like I said, if you'll post in here, anybody that watches live or replay, if you'll post what bank you used and whether or not it was a good experience for the loan and or forgiveness, that would be helpful to everybody. But I know I have heard good things from several community banks here. I know Blue Vine got good reviews from people, PayPal, Cabbage. There are several of those. But the community banks are getting to go first this go round. But so in order to apply, what you're going to need to fill out the SBA form, and I will link that. So I'm glad you asked that. I will put the link to the application. It's actually really simple. So this is which one is this? This is the first draw one. So there's a separate one. It's called the 25. Oh goodness, it doesn't say. I think it's the 2583. Anyway, there's a second draw loan and a first draw loan, but I will link that so that you can see that. Oh, so good to know. So Regina says Capital One had a super easy process for PPP. I'm so glad to hear that. I love hearing about these different banks, because you guys, like so many, didn't have a great process the first time around. So what you'll need is that application. You'll need a way for the bank to verify your payroll calculation, because remember, generally it's going to be payroll, average monthly payroll for 2019 or 2020, whichever's higher, times 2.5, plus the IDL loan that you want to refi, not including the advance. So in order to prove the payroll numbers, you're going to need your payroll. So you're going to need 941s, and for sole proprietors, you'll need your tax return to show your Schedule C, line 31. And then if you're taking a second draw, you need to show a 25% reduction in your revenue for 1 quarter of 2020 versus 2019. So for that, obviously, you will need a way to show that, which will be your tax return for 2019, most likely. And then it's unclear, because I mean, I'm going to be shocked if any of you already have it together to file your 2020 tax return. But so what I'm thinking that they will, what your banks will ask for, and we're waiting for all the banks. All the banks are going to have their own, like, how we're going to determine this. But I'm thinking they will take financial statements or probably bank statements to prove it. So whatever you do to get that in your mind of, what your revenue was, just make sure that you've got the adequate documentation to go with that. So if you've got, second quarter, which would be April to June, and you say that your revenue number was, $20,000, then have the bank statements that show how you got to the $20,000 that go with that, right? Because you're just trying to make it easy for them. Then you'll also have to do some certifications that show where you certify that you were in business, you were right entity structure, that there's economic uncertainty that's requiring you to have this loan to stay in business, and some other things. So does that make sense? Even if you don't have any workers, sorry, I'm really new. Yes, even if you don't have any workers. So this, I don't have your name. If you click on that StreamYard permission thing up above, then it will give you, and then I can see your name. So sorry that I don't know who I'm talking to. I would love to know, or just put your name in the comment below. But okay, so if you don't have any workers, I'm assuming that like you're just a true sole proprietor. Is that right? If you get to answer that, then if you answer that, I think that you're probably a true, like just sole proprietor, an LLC, single member LLC, filing as a sole proprietor. Then that would mean, hey, Melissa, thank you for telling me your name. Oh, yes. Okay, you're a single member. Okay, so then the way that you're going to determine, are you asking me about first loan or second loan? First draw or second draw? Because I'm going to answer that a little bit differently. Actually, I'll just answer both questions because this is going to come up for other people. So the first draw people, remember the rules did not change. The first draw people, if you did not get the loan the first time through, you do not need to show that 25% reduction. Oh, first. Okay, Melissa, I'm so excited for you. So first, you still have to have been in business by February 15th, 2020. And you also can use 2019 or 2020 payroll. Now, for a sole proprietor, you don't have true payroll, right? So the way they determine that is you go to your Schedule C on your tax return, most likely your 2019 tax return, because who has their 2020 tax return done on January 11th, 2021? So you go to your 2019 tax return, Schedule C, line 31, which is your net profit line. Divide that by 12, and that is your average monthly payroll. And you multiply that by 2.5 times, and that is what the amount that you can get for your loan. So I hope that helps. If you are second time, if you're doing a second draw, then you do have to show that 25% decline and make those certifications. So I hope that made sense. Who, we talked about this, you have to show the entity size. So it's 500 or fewer employees if this is your first draw, 300 or fewer if it's your second draw, $10 million max on the first draw, $2 million max on the second draw. The second draw has the big caveat of the 25% decline in revenue. So, oh, good. I'm so glad that helped. Oh, that makes me so happy. You guys, I'm so cheering you on. I support small businesses personally and professionally. And I'm just, I want you guys to get this money that's being offered to you. And I want to make this as simple as possible for you. So I have been on here for, oh gosh, like almost 40 minutes, which it just takes a while to explain these government things. So, but I hope that this was helpful to you. Please continue to ask questions. Know that I want to help and support you. I may or may not know the answer right off the top of my head, but I will look and see if I can get the answer. You're not my client, so please know, like I always have to say that disclaimer since I am a CPA, that you should consult with your own tax advisor and CPA and lawyer and all that, because this is not like a paid consultation, but it's just me sharing from my heart to try to help you. If this has been helpful for you, then that makes me so happy. That's what I'm here for. If you want to let your friends know and invite them to the groups, so they can get more information like that, then I would be so happy to have them, because the more the merrier. It's easier for me to teach and share, and for us to be in community and learn from each other, because we're all small business owners. So I will resume my weekly training on Thursday at 10 a.m. Central. We're talking first things first this month. So last week I talked about planning in order to reach your financial goals for 2021. If you didn't catch it, it's on replay within the Facebook group, Small Business Finance Simplified, and also on my YouTube channel, Christy Varner. So go back and catch that so that you can make a plan for success in 2021. And we'll have another topic in our First Things First this week on Thursday. If there are major updates for the PPP, you can rest assured that I will come back and update you on what I know. But be engaged and drop questions into the community, because that's how I'll know that you have them and I'll look them up. So, oh, you're so welcome, Regina. You're so welcome, Melissa. I'm so happy to help you guys. I'm assuming this is Melissa. I'm so happy to help you guys, and just let me know what else I can do to help. Here, cheering you on. You guys are so kind. You're so welcome. So fun, so fun. So fun to have this new Facebook group. And I know a lot of you came over from Clubhouse, and I just wanted to say thank you. And I'll see you on Clubhouse again soon. I took the weekend off, but in the Clubhouse train, I will get started again today. So, all right. All my love to you guys, cheering you on. And until next time.